check out Night Dreams' website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Hey, this is Gary from Night Dreams Talk Radio. I want to welcome a new sponsor to our show, PhoenixShaving.com. I know what you're thinking, right? Oh, another disposable razor company. Well, the fact is they're not. You remember the razors that your father and his father shaved with? Did you ever notice they didn't have, well, the embarrassing razor burn or ingrown hairs or the razor bumps after they shaved? Did you notice they were also relaxed after they were done shaving? Well, the problem is these big corporations want to sell you razor after razor after razor. Think about how much money you spend a year on razors. Or do you use electric razor? Then you're going to find out what razor burn is. So you need to check out Phoenix Shaving Starter Kits. They come complete with the soap, the brush, and a 2.5-month supply of blades. And the most important part of it, an all-metal razor, built to last generations. So, hey, you can donate it to one of your sons when they turn 18. Check out PhoenixShaving.com and tell them that Gary from Night Dream said, hey, I want one. That's PhoenixShaving.com now.
You're listening to Night Dreams Radio with Gary Anderson.
Hey, that is me. Well, the weather here in Gig Harbor, well, we lost the sun. It's kind of a little bit chilly today, but guess what? We still have weather. You know, tonight we got a guest on, talking about, maybe conspiracies, the secret space program, things like that. All kind of fits in with what happened here recently with our president directing, the Pentagon to create a space force. But, a lot of things have led up to this, I think, in the last, maybe year. The release of the footage of the two fighter pilots in the Navy going after a UFO. And then about a month after that, you have the Secretary of the Air Force addressing the cadets that the next war will not be a world war, but it'll be a war in space. With that, are you there tonight, guest?
I am here.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Sure. My name is Olav Phillps. I'm the publisher of Paranoia Magazine. I'm a conspiracy researcher, and I also do paranormal stuff as well. I've written 2 books, The Secret Space Age, available from Adventures Unlimited Press, and The Cold War in Space, which is available from Paranoia Press. I've also contributed to a bunch of books on various topics, from ancient weaponry to UFOs and everything in between.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I think that's it.
Well, what do you think is actually going on right now? I mean, here we had the president, back about 2 months ago, he was kind of joking around and said, hey, maybe I should create a space force. And then all of a sudden, he announced, he was going to last week.
Right.
Do you think something's up or it's already...
No.
No? Okay.
No. I think that this is window dressing. I think it's this stuff's been in the works for a very long time, and I think that he basically, by doing that, the way that I explain it, right, is that when I hear somebody come out and go and they say something shocking like, we should have a secret space program, right, and then you read about it on the news and it's on front page news. I look at all the other news going on that day and go, okay, what's really happening? Because I think that a lot of this kind of stuff is not window dressing, but it's like to diffuse a situation or to confuse it. And so, we all know there's a secret space program. There's been one for a long time. So him creating a space force, it just means that they don't have to lie about it. Right, and cover it up.
Yeah, well, maybe it was getting to the point where they couldn't cover it up anymore.
That's my suspicion. That would be my 10 cents if you asked me for my opinion. I would suggest to you that they were having more and more problems covering it up. There are more and more people with camera phones, that are seeing more and more exotic aircraft in their they're having a harder and harder time explaining what some of this stuff is.
Well, the only thing
I think you're exactly right.
The only thing that had me slightly concerned when you had the Secretary of the Air Force kind of mentioned, like, the next war won't be a ground war; it'll be out in outer space, and it seems like they're just like releasing a little bit, trying to maybe get us prepared or something. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, this is a methodology that they've had employed for some time. The prognostications that the next war in space would happen. That started actually, it was a little over a decade ago. They did a kind of futurist program where they commissioned a study, and I forget what they called those, like Air Force 2040 or something like that. And in that, they prophesized that the next real war would be in space.
Now,
so this is something that's not brand new.
Now, the war out in space, is it going to be with aliens, or do you think it's going to be with another country? Or that's my only concern right now.
It's an interesting question to ask. I think that in a lot of ways, I think that who we're going out there to fight is humans. I think I have always subscribed to the breakaway civilization concept, so I believe that there is a breakaway civilization that is not living on the Earth.
Okay. So they're out there somewhere on another planet or back on the moon or someplace like that, maybe?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Ah.
And so I think that they come around and mess with us and upset us, and then we send people up to go shoot at them, and kind of goes around in a circle.
Okay. Now, do you think any of this has anything to do with back towards the end of World War II with the Nazis trying to develop something that was like the Nazi Bell or something like that? Or
I do. I actually believe that that's the breakaway civilization, is a group of Germans. Well, Germans and sympathizers, right? So they're not all Germans, but I believe that a group of them left and went out and moved out, and then they come back every so often to mess with us.
Wow, boy,
Sounds crazy.
Not really.
Crazy, huh?
Not really. I mean, I had the honor to know Ronald Reagan a little bit from a friend of mine. James Gardner was a good friend of Reagan, and I was a young kid. I think I was about maybe around 17 or so. And he got James Gardner got Reagan to call me, and Reagan at that time was doing a national show like once a month for young people to call, and he would ask questions. Well, he called me, and then it got to the point where he called me a few times and invited me to the White House, which I never went. But one time he called me up, and he was talking about Star Wars. And the way he was talking about it, it wasn't really so much to protect us against Russia, which he had a little thing about.
Right.
It was more about what was out there. And that's what he was really concerned about. So it kind of made me wonder all these years what he meant by out there.
Well, he has those famous UN speeches where he's like, wouldn't it be a thing if we were attacked by aliens, basically, and we'd all come together as humans. That's a very famous quote from the UN speech. And I think that is, fundamentally true. I mean, if we were attacked by aliens, then we would probably all band together and fight. But I would argue to you that the Star Wars program was most likely actually developed under Carter and actually rolled out before Reagan even took office.
I wouldn't doubt that, because Carter himself was a real believer, in UFOs. In fact, with an interview he did with Playboy at the time, he said, well, if he became president, he would, release that information. But it never happened.
And he saw one, and he was a nuclear engineer, and he saw one, and so he, he was supposed to release them. But now in recent years he's backpedaled. So, now he's kind of backing off of that stance.
Yeah, but you notice even all the previous presidents, have mentioned, they're going to release, what they know or can find out about UFOs. They become, president, and all of a sudden, they just don't release it. And that, makes me wonder if, under conspiracy, who controls our
Right.
president. I mean, maybe our president has a certain amount of authority, but then maybe there's a shadow government, controlling him on other
Yeah.
things.
Well, they call it the deep state, right? There's this notion of a group of people called the deep state that actually, meter this stuff out. But the question I would ask you is that when it comes to disclosure, and I ask this often, and very few people have an answer. But what are you exactly disclosing? Let's say the disclosure happened tomorrow. What are we actually disclosing, right? No, nobody. We all say disclosure, but it's like, if you ask 10 people what disclosure is, you get 10 different responses because there's no unified concept. Me, for example, right? If you ask me what disclosure is, I think disclosure is disclosing the secret space program. Right? I don't think they're going to disclose a bunch of UFO stuff, aliens and rays abducting people, that kind of thing. I don't think they will. So, but if you get other people, they're going to go more down the alien UFO bandwagon. So, disclosure as a thing, it's completely relative to who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Right, so that's our first problem as a group.
Now we're getting a little bit of background noise. It's coming over pretty loud.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Now,
I'm working on it.
Okay. Well, my concern is too. I don't think if you lie to the public long enough, and you feed the public propaganda long enough. Even if you wanted to tell the truth at a certain point, you can't, because then if you do, nobody's going to ever trust anything.
Well, they already don't trust you. I think the first thing we have to do is admit that we don't trust what they're going to tell us no matter what, right? That it's not a trustworthy system at the moment, right? Then we can go from there. But no, I mean, I think that what you're going to lose is not just trust, you're going to lose faith. And you're going to lose faith in the system and faith in that our system works, right? Because you're going to come to realize that things don't always work the way that you're taught in school, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then that's a dangerous thing,
Well, do you honestly think...
who's in...
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that honestly that the public out there could really take the truth if for some reason they came out, and they had to come out tomorrow and say, hey, look, there are aliens, they're not friendly, or they maybe could be friendly, but I'm just going the worst case scenario. They come out and say, hey,
sure,
there's aliens and they're not friendly, and they do not want to help mankind. And
right.
Basically, we could maybe be seeing them in the next day or two, and it could be not very good for the public. I mean, how are the people going to? They're going to freak out.
But turn the coin around, right? At the same time you're doing that, right? Also look at it from another perspective, right? So you come out and you say, oh, by the way, we have. Not only, instead of saying that we have UFOs, right? You say, okay, well, we have a secret space program. We've had a secret space program for decades, and we don't want to tell you guys about it. Now you've got a whole different problem to manage, right?
Well,
so it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned either way.
Well, I sure, if that came out honestly, as it is, I think if you actually took 10 people and you asked them, do you believe what you hear in the news from the government? I'm not talking about what you hear on, the news, because we all know, right? A president said our news is fake. I don't think what we hear from the comes out of the White House is any more honest than what we hear.
No.
Yeah, that's what my concern is.